Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I think this afternoon is a hard time for the lecture, for the sharing. But anyway, we'll try our best. So I think first, this afternoon session will focus on human development and Catholic social teaching, focus on the migrants, especially in Asia. So I think these topics will invite Father Desmond to share on this. Thank you.
I will come.
You remember Father Nitya's paper? It has global estimates of migration is 214 million estimated international migrants. So I want to broaden that to come under the heading of people on the move. This is the biggest phenomenon in the world today, people on the move. And it looks like and it contains two groups of people, migration and tourism. So I am trying to finish what I have to say and then it will be open for you all to discuss. So what do I have about migration? So why migration and tourism? Because migration is from poor countries to rich, and tourism is from, I don't hear anybody asleep, rich to poor.
To develop.
Yeah, so it's the opposite way around. So these two things have to be looked at together, because tourism is now one of the three biggest industries in the world, along with oil and car manufacturing of cars. These are the three biggest industries. I'm almost certain that tourism is bigger than these now. So I was secretary of the Ecumenical Coalition, the Catholic and Protestant churches on Third World tourism. After I left OHD, for 3 years I was secretary to the Catholic and Protestant churches. And at that time, which is 1990 to 93, it was one of the three. I'm sure by now it is the top of the three. So that's about tourism. So let me just look at something about migration. I just want to say something about these two things. That if you have migration and tourism, you don't look at it only in terms of people moving. You look at dysfunction. There's something wrong with society, which makes the rich and the poor, and then allows one group of people to move one way and the other group of people to move the opposite way. So there is a dysfunction in global society. And so the Catholic social teaching, which I'm supposed to be speaking about, does speak about this dysfunction in society. Under the three encyclicals, you remember them? Human Development. What year? Progressio Popular of what year? 1967. you're not one of the students, okay? Those are the guys who
Yeah, you said.
1967, then Social Concern of the Church.
87.
1987.
Yeah.
You all have forgotten, these are the ones that made me suffer. I told you all how I had to suffer. After teaching this, I got thrown out, and I was called back to teach this. And then you've got Charity and Truth, which is 2009. So every 20 years,
2009, correct. Yeah.
every 20 years, this whole thing about human development. So there is a dysfunction in the way human development is taking place. And if you remember, right in the beginning, the popes have said that if one group of people is left out of the process of human development, then no human development has taken place. Is that clear? So either we all develop together or nobody has developed. So that's very clear from this, and it's repeated in the other encyclicals. Secondly, the Pope has said very clearly that in human development, there is such a thing as the structures of sin. So this encyclical is very famous for its structures of sin. So when we're talking about a dysfunctional society, we're talking about the structures of sin. The way society is organized is called the structures of sin. I like to give this example. When I was secretary to the bishops, the image of the rich man and Lazarus. This image, rich man and Lazarus. When was it in the Gospel?
Luke.
Yeah, Gospel of Luke. It was read just a couple of days ago. I said something about rich and poor in Ishwanti, and Sister Grazia said about women. So the structures of sin now are exactly what we're talking about, the rich man and Lazarus. These are not just individuals, these are groups of people in society. So society is structured, is organized in such a way that there are those who are rich and those who are poor. Now, I think it's very important to understand what this means. What this means is that I had to explain this in simple language to the bishops. So I told the bishops, suppose all you bishops would sit up on the platform, on the dais, and you sat with your croziers and your mitres and everything on, and all of us were sitting down here, and you all said, all right, come on you fellows, tell us what we should do. This is especially for the women's group, okay? Tell us what we should do to change the church. I said if I was sitting down, I wouldn't say a word. Not because I'm scared of you, but because I don't think it's worthwhile saying anything. Why? Why isn't it worthwhile saying anything? Come on. Because why? Why isn't it worthwhile? I'm not scared of saying anything to the bishops. But I won't say anything if you're sitting up there and I'm sitting down here. What are you saying to me?
You are higher than me.
Of course. That you are superior to me. So why should I say anything to you? So the way you structure society is the message that you're giving me. Usually I would be sitting by the side of a bishop at that time. So if I can put my arm around the bishop and say, bishop, this is what I think. What's happened all of a sudden? What's happened? Have I changed, and why? Hey, come on, wake up. What's happened to me? Why have I started speaking then? The whole setup has changed. Now we are equals, no? So I can talk to him and he can talk to me. So that is the structures of sin. And so, what's the implication of that in the church? Come on, you women's groups.
Over there again.
Yeah, the way it's structured, the moment you have a pyramidal hierarchic structure, there is a superior, inferior built in to that system. So it's not a matter of whether the bishops have a concern for women. They do. Many of them do. Some of them don't, but most of them do. But as I told you, when Cardinal Singh said, I want to be a poor man, so I moved from the palace into the slum, then I realized that I brought my palace into the slum, no? Just because of the expectations of people. So no bishop, unless he has great courage like Bishop Kong or Cardinal Kim or some, will even try, will even try, not because they are bad, not because they have bad intentions, but in the way society is structured.
Yeah.
Can you understand what I'm saying? If tomorrow the women were put up and the men were put down, you all would behave exactly the same way. Don't we see that in religious orders?
Yeah.
The moment you put women religious as superiors, they become worse authoritarian than the men.
Worse?
Because with the men, because the men we can tell the superior you go to hell, you know.
Yeah.
No women will tell their superior that. They always, because all their life they have accepted authority, you know.
You explained what I said yesterday.
Okay,
That's response.
so in this encyclical, so now you understand why migrants are looked down on. I come from Goa. In Goa, I know more Goan Catholics in Toronto than I know in Goa, because all those that I knew in Goa have all migrated to Toronto. So who is coming to fill that place? Migrants from other parts of India, from the indigenous peoples from central India are all moving into Goa, because Goa is like Toronto, you know, or the Gulf, where the domestic workers move. And so, because they are well paid in Goa, they all come to Goa. The people of Goa hate them. They don't like them. They don't want these migrants around. But they can't do without them. Can you understand what's happening?
Yeah.
They cannot do without them. They are the ones who are the base on which Goa functions. If they went on strike, if they all left, Goa would come to a standstill. Because none of us are ready to do the dirty work that they are doing, the migrants are doing. So 33% of Goa is migrants, because 33% of Goans have gone out. And so the migrants are taking, this is the dysfunction in society, all right? So on the 19th of December is the Migrants' Day. Migrants' Day, the Vatican comes out with a letter, and if you look at Father Nitya's paper, some of the things about the migrants. First of all, that the people of Israel, God's chosen people, were migrants. Okay? I don't need to go. Exodus. People of Exodus is people of Israel were migrants. And so they had a great love for migrants. So in the Old Testament as well as in the New Testament, there are three categories of people that are God's special people. The people of Israel are God's special people. But among them, there are three categories that are very special. And who are they? The orphan, the widow, and
The stranger.
the migrant.
Really.
The migrant and the stranger. These are the three categories in the Epistle of St. James, chapter 1, verse 23. Religion pure and simple before God our Father is this: to be concerned about the orphan, the widow, and it's left out, but I'm adding it in, and the migrant. No? These three. Why would God have a special? He has a special love for all of us, but a special love for these three categories. Because, hey, are you awake or are you asleep? Why? Why would he have? Huh?
They're helpless.
Yeah, they're the most helpless.
Yeah.
You know. So these are three categories that have a special preference in God's way of looking at it. And so, therefore, Jesus was a migrant. So, right from the beginning, how do I know he was a migrant? Where was he born?
Jerusalem.
Bethlehem is in the south, near Jerusalem. He was from the north, Galilee. So he was a migrant. He had to move. He said, the birds of the air have nests, and the foxes have... Hey, do you all read the Bible at all? You read the New Testament at all? No? And the foxes have their holes, but
The Son of
Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. All right. So Jesus was a migrant. So you can understand why migrants have a very special place in God's love, and therefore should be for the church. So if you read Father Nitya's paper, they've got all the things that the church should do, just like they say about women. Nothing is done actually, you know. It's nice to have it on paper. Right? I can say all these things, but I'm not the secretary to the bishops anymore, no? And then I have to lecture the bishops on this, and they all tell me, Desmond, very good. I wish we all knew social teaching like you as a bishop. I know at the end of it you will say, we must thank Father Desmond for all that he has said, and now we will try and put it into practice. You'll never do it. Because it's not uppermost on your agenda. It's not uppermost on your agenda. Women's, poor, these are not uppermost. Liturgy, catechesis, building churches, this is top on the agenda. I'll tell you one more story, my favorite story about bishops. All these were my friends, okay? So I can't tell you their names because I would let them down too badly. So, Bishop is telling me, hey Desmond, who has time for your social justice and all these sort of things? I am worried about day-to-day problems. One priest wants to take another priest to court. I have to stop that fellow. Somebody else wants to build a church and a school. I have to find money to build the church and the school. Somebody else wants to build place for children. I have to find money. Who has time for your social justice? The very fellow is in charge of social justice. The bishop who's in charge of social justice is telling me that he has no time for social justice. So, can you understand what the structures of society? It's not that he doesn't have this in mind. He has all the good intentions. But the good intentions are not sufficient in order to deliver the goods. Let me give one last example, okay? I'm a trained preacher, okay? My order is a preaching order. Now suppose all of you were in this room and I was in the next room. And you locked all these doors, and I locked all those doors. And I started preaching. I can shout till I'm blue in the face. Y'all would never hear one word of what I'm saying. Why? Because y'all have bad intentions. Because I have bad intentions. Why? Because the setup is like that. No? The setup is like that. So the setup of the church and the setup of society is like the rivers. If you notice, all the rivers flow into the sea where there's already plenty of water. So our society is built like that, where the rich remain richer and the poor remain poor, because they make all the decisions. Bishops make all the decisions, all right? So until we have women bishops, and even if you have women bishops, matriarchy will be just as bad as patriarchy. Now you know why I'm cynical about this. Because I've seen this. I'm not standing in judgment on their good intentions. you don't understand how the structure of society and the structures of society. And so even a person like Cardinal Singh, who wants to be a poor man, because he's a cardinal, he cannot be a poor man. Therefore, he has to take his palace into the slum. He has to have a table, he has to have a chair, he has to have a telephone, he has to have a cook, he has to have a driver. He brought the palace into the slum. No? So you must understand this thing called structures of society. All right? I'll go on then to tourism. I'll tell you something about tourism and then I'll open it out to you. Now, the Ecumenical Coalition on Third World Tourism, 1980. This was started by the Catholic and Protestant churches of the whole Third World. That means Asia, Africa, Latin America, the Pacific, the Middle East, and the Caribbean. So I used to work even as secretary to the Asian bishops. I represented the bishops, Asian bishops, on this committee, and then afterwards when I left OHD, I became secretary of this.
To what?
It's called the Ecumenical Coalition on Third World Tourism. It's now called Ecumenical Coalition on Tourism. ECOT. Now it's called that. Right? I was so thrilled to be the secretary. Actually, I volunteered to be the secretary when they asked me. I said yes, because for the first time in my life, the church was prophetic. The church was the first to speak out and criticize the way mass and luxury tourism was developing. Mass and luxury tourism. So, if you see what happens 27th of September, incidentally that's my birthday, 27th of September is the day when World Tourism Day is celebrated. World Tourism Day is celebrated. And when the Vatican puts out its paper on tourism, they always say tourism is good, but there are certain bad things about it. No? But basically tourism is good. But when we look at it from the third world, what's this third world? What's this third world?
Least developed country like that.
Yeah, least developed countries. When we look at it from our side and see how tourism is developing, we see it from the side of the victims. They are taking our land, they are taking our water, they are turning our women into prostitution and our children into prostitution. When you look at it through the eyes of the victims, this is not helpful to us. And most of all, the way tourism is developing destroys our local culture and gives them, their culture, great importance. Let me just give you one example of what I'm saying. We used to have two captions, two cartoons. 1896, the Europeans are with coat, pant, tie, shirt, and the Africans are naked. And the Europeans are saying to the Africans, shame, cover up. 1996, the Europeans are half naked. The Africans are all, Asians are all with suits and so on. And they are saying to the Europeans, shame, cover up. Can you understand what's happening? So, we've become more European than the Europeans themselves. They've become exactly the opposite. They are the ones who determine how we are supposed to live. Why? If they have money and power and leisure to come to our countries, and we don't have money and power and leisure, then they must be superior to us. Can you understand the thinking? So culturally they must be, so we have to imitate them. And so we imitate them so perfectly that I can't afford to talk, okay? Whenever I go abroad and I speak English, they ask me, how the hell do you speak English so well, you know? I said, because I grew up in India and in Bombay, where Lord Macaulay, the British Governor General, said, we must make these Indians British in everything except the color of their skin. They did a good job also. They did an excellent job. That's why I speak English so well. I speak English better than my own language, you know, because that's the way I was trained. I was trained that way. So do you understand what I'm trying to say? What I'm trying to say is that the way tourism is developing, what is the alternative? What is the church saying? The church is supporting what we call people-to-people tourism. People-to-people tourism. So tourism should be a meeting between people to understand one another and to appreciate each other's culture. So instead of coming as superior people because they have money and power and leisure, they should come as pilgrims. How do pilgrims come? When you go on pilgrimage, you go humbly to a new place because this is sacred ground, this is sacred culture. They should come to learn and to share. So that's what the church should be supporting. In actual fact, it doesn't. But the Ecumenical Coalition was the first time the church was prophetic. We were the first to criticize the way tourism was developing, and we were the first to raise the issue of end child prostitution in Asian tourism. ECPAT. 1990, we had the first meeting in Bangkok. End child prostitution in Asian tourism. And just to tell you how frustrating it is with the Vatican, these are Catholic and Protestants organizing the session in Bangkok. First international meeting, people from all over the world are coming there. First international meeting on how tourism creates child prostitution, because all these guys who come are looking for prostitution, no? The nuncio, that's the Vatican representative. I wish there were some bishops over here to listen to me. The Vatican representative, he comes and he reads his talk, which is written on the back of an envelope, and which he can't read himself. He gives that sort of a talk there. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And then before the talk, he comes to me and he says, make sure they clap for me after the talk. I want to throw his talk out of the window. Only trouble is, we had to make a book out of it. So I had to rewrite his whole talk and produce it for the book that came out, Now you know why I get so angry about the way the church operates. But I don't have any other church to go to, My last thing is, when I was secretary to the Asian bishops, I could say much more than I could say as secretary to the Asian bishops, when I was secretary to Catholic and Protestant. Now I'm representing the Catholic and the Protestant churches. Protestant church is much more forward-looking on this. So I could say many more things. So when I went to the Vatican at the meeting, at this international meeting on tourism, 90% of the people were from Europe. 10% of the people were from the third world, and we were only 3 or 4 people from Asia. So I said, when it comes to prostitution, or when it comes to abortion, the church is very clear in its stance on the side of the victim. Are you all following me? Abortion cannot take place. Prostitution cannot take place. Women and unborn child cannot be victimized. The church never says, there are good points and bad points. Why should we allow innocent children to be born when they have to be born in poverty and suffering? It never says that. No good points and bad. Very clear stance on the side of the innocent victim. Are you all following me? When it comes to war, the church is very clear. War is immoral. because so many innocent people have to suffer because some governments are fighting. But when it comes to tourism, we are dilly-dally. There are good points and bad points. Are we ready to say that the way tourism is developing is a structure of sin? They told me half those people wanted to kill me over there, because these were all the whole tourism industry. And Cardinal came to me and he put his arm around me. He said, "I know, Desmond, you get very angry about all these things, but we are trying to understand what you're saying." I said, "Cardinal, it doesn't matter to me. If you come to NM, I'm okay. I'll say Z. I am opposed to tourism in this particular form of mass and luxury tourism because it doesn't help my people." And I come from Goa, where tourism is a big thing. That's where I learned all about tourism. It does not help my people. It degrades my people. And that's an insult to God. If you support something that degrades my people, degrades my land, degrades my culture, where these things happen, God is insulted. Do you know that? Thank you very much.